A tactic that normally doesn't work is to brute force your way through it and just pull yourself up by the bootstraps, bite the bullet, just jump into it right away, eat that frog. That tends to not work that well for me. I think it's one of those neurotypical approaches where you're just using brute force motivation. It can kind of work in the short term, but I think in the long term it leads to burnout if you're not looking at some of the other techniques as well. That if you're continually pushing yourself to do things that you don't like doing and that aren't really relevant to your long-term goals, it's going to burn you out. But there is definitely something to be said for building up courage by looking at why you're scared of the task. Because there are often times where there are things that I'm putting off because I'm afraid of them. And I can just push my way through it, or I can look at why am I afraid? An example is there's a call that I need to make where I'm going to call a contact at a high school, and I'm a bit afraid of doing that. I don't often make phone calls out of the blue to people, and I'm afraid they're not going to pick up and they're going to reject my call, and it will be very embarrassing. What has been helpful is doing some journaling around the situation and asking myself, what am I afraid is going to happen? And what will happen after that? And I can go down this whole rabbit hole of what are all the potential fears. And at a certain point, it becomes a bit ludicrous. And I realize it's actually probably not going to be that bad. The worst thing that's likely to happen is they're not going to be available that day and I'll just have to try again another time. But it's worth then going through that and looking at what is the realistic situation that's going to happen. And that really helps to alleviate my fears and makes it easier to tackle them. So if there's something you've been putting off and the other techniques aren't working, then try this. Do some introspective journaling about why you're afraid of it, and then try and question whether those fears are true. And then it will be much easier to get started on it.